Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
So would you read something from your book, please?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to start?
I want you to start.
But
yes.
can I just say how design complementary these two books
Yes.
are?
Oh, that's true,
This was
isn't
not, they're really nice together. It's almost as if you should buy both.
Of course you should buy both.
And put them next to each
But
other.
they forced me to have my picture on the front. That's the difference.
Well, it's a beautiful picture. And then
Thank
the
you.
picture in the back,
Yeah,
who took that?
you did.
Yeah. It's a nice picture in the back.
Very nice.
Okay, I'll read very, very, very quick, short little thing. This is the end of the chapter about, I'm in a kisaten in Oase, and it's raining out, it's terrible out, and I've been in there all morning writing and eating cinnamon toast, and it's pouring out, and I don't want to walk today. And so the owner invites me to go peek at something. So, and the owner is this tiny man behind the counter. He's about 80, and he was an iron worker for his career. And he's sort of he made the kisaten. And so this is the end of it. Hours in, the customers thin out. The owner asks if I want to see something. I do, of course, whatever it may be. We run, he's faster than he looks, outside in the rain, down the road, across a driveway and into a barn. It's dark and damp, and he leads me up steep stairs to an attic where murder or miracles lurk. Strands of bulbs encircle the room. He turns on the lights. Before me, a universe of tiny iron frogs, just inches tall. He's welded hundreds, maybe thousands. Frogs playing tennis, and frogs climbing the Tower of Babel, so he explains. Frogs meditating, and frogs performing judo moves. They're all so precise, you immediately know what the frogs are intending to do. Yet he walks me through, one by one, all the frogs. A lifetime of frog work. Like this, he takes an iron rose off the wall and hands it to me. For you, he says. I try to give him money, but he laughs, shakes his head, says he's as rich as he'll ever need to be.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful, Craig. So I'm just going to read, because these are many different stories, and they're from over 35 years of writing stories. I didn't actually realize I was a story writer until we collected some of this. It's funny. So I'll just read from the very first story in the book, and it's almost the length of a novella. It's called Come and Go, and it begins with a quote from Orson Welles' film Touch of Evil. What does it matter what you say about people? Part 1. It must have been the movie. Afterward, New Yorkers did a dumb show, and the city was silent except for its special effects. But she heard the sinister soundtrack, especially the hissing. Everything, everyone, was out of sync. A man with 2 lit cigarettes in his mouth gazed ahead, stupefied. He must have seen the movie, too. Now it was noisy. Her head hurt in the late afternoon when she walked up Broadway to the Green Market at Union Square. The fruit and vegetables looked good, but she knew she wouldn't buy any. They'd just rot. She waved her hands in the air, fending off an imaginary object or punctuating her unspoken utterances with a familiar futility. Her right hand hit a man in the shoulder. He had a stud in his ear and was carrying flowers, one of which fell to the ground. He bent to pick it up. So those are the first couple of paragraphs of that longish story. Craig, it was a pleasure to read this book of yours. And it is, I think, an entirely unusual book because it's not really a memoir. It's, the story is of a very long walk he takes in Japan on a very old path, whose name I've forgotten. And on this walk, he is thinking about a friend of his who died at a very young age, a very close friend of his. And in a way, the book is written as a letter to this friend. And why I think it's very unusual is that it's far from a memoir, because there's a specific event that has happened in his past, and around that, the walk, in a sense, comes about. The walk is about, I suppose, healing, although it's a concept that I kind of am annoyed by, but, you know. But there is something like that in there. He's more of an optimist or something, I think, than I am. But I wondered if you'd talk about how you decided to write this book in this way, in this relationship between the walk and the friend who died.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to get here. I did the walk exactly 4 years ago. Right now, I was in the middle of that walk, so coming to the end of it. And I completed the walk, and it was during COVID, and so there was a very bizarre kind of pall of quietude across everything. And so, I don't know, it was you were in this, I found I was in a more reflective mode than I was in the usual busy day-to-day flitting about. And, you know, the peninsula mirrors the town I grew up in socioeconomically. And so
the town you grew up in America.
In America, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so both kind of post-industrial places. And, you know, my book is all about kind of the lack of grace that was happening in that town that you kind of don't even know. You're missing the grace until you leave, and then you see kind of the abundance of others in other places. And so the peninsula to me was sort of shocking. It felt very comforting and familiar because these felt like my people to a certain degree. And yet it had none of the violence or drugs or pain to the same degree. And so, you know, I'd see little kids running around on this walk, and I would just start to think back, oh, what if we had been here? What would we have been doing here? And Brian, you know, he was, I mean, the thing is, we graduated high school, and then he was murdered soon after. And when that happened, I wanted to process that somehow. And my first short story, actually, I ever published was about Brian. And so I was immediately trying to do that with writing, but I didn't know how to. And I don't know, it just seemed like the timing was right to kind of reflect back on that. And I had spent enough time maybe on myself that I had the space in my heart, the kind of yo-yo to be able to look back on that period. But it took a while. I mean, in the walk, he was starting to sneak out, and then I did one draft, and then one of my editors kind of started pulling at the Brian thread and got me to write more about that. And then I produced the fine art edition of the book, and then after that I went back with the Random House team.
Tell them what the fine art edition, what you mean by that.
It's just this book has had this bizarre, very complicated, circuitous process where I went on a walk, I wrote 60,000 words on the walk while I was doing the walk, and then I thought I was going to spend 21 days putting it into a book, and the 21 days are now at like day, 700 or something like that. And then I went out to sell the book because I thought, oh, these themes are kind of bigger than a lot of the other themes I write about. Maybe a publisher in New York would want it. And then everyone sort of said no. And anyway, just lots of rejections. And then I resigned myself to making the fine art edition. And then in the middle of producing that, Random House reached out. And so it was kind of a bizarre contract where I retained fine art rights and they got the trade hardcover. And my fine art edition came out a year and a half ago, and this one is a very different sort of iteration on it. So I feel best about this edition. Feels like the place I wanted to get to, and it just took all of those steps to get this far along the way.
I was in reading it. I've known Craig for a while. How many years? 15, you said?
14 and a half, yeah.
But who's counting, as we say?
I think 14 and a half.
14, yeah. And we met at McDowell. And I think the experience of reading this book, and reading a book by someone you know, and then you realize you don't know him. Or you know such a small slice of him. And it's very strange. I've had this experience several times now with a few of my friends who've had things that happened in their lives or because of the bodies they're in or so on that are very different. And I'm wondering about when you were writing this, how you felt about that kind of exposure.
Well, I think that's why it took so long to get to this iteration of it, because this draft, because it does feel exposing. I mean, a lot of my friends who've read this, the close friends who read it, were like, I was kind of riveted because I realized I didn't know who you were, and I wanted to find out more about who was this guy Craig that I thought I had known for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years or whatever, which was surprising to me because it didn't feel, I felt like I hadn't been hiding any of that, so that was interesting to hear.
I don't think you were consciously hiding something, but unlike you have a lot of restraint, and a lot of other people I know would be talking much more about something terrible that had happened in their past, and you didn't do that.
Yeah, a friend of mine the other day, Liz Danziger, who I spoke with in Seattle, and she said to me, the first time we went out to dinner, which was like 2007, we met, I was 26. She goes, the first time we went out to dinner, we went to this restaurant, and I had the impression that I was sitting across from a feral animal who had never eaten at a restaurant or ordered from a menu before, which is probably accurate. I don't think I had been to a nice restaurant in New York before. And she's just like, you didn't know how to navigate a menu. Anyway, so there were lots of things I think I was blind to, anyway, and lots of parts of me that I was sort of either embarrassed by or hiding, and it's taken a long time to get to a place where, I don't know, I feel like I've kind of moved beyond that.
Your version of America from this small city or small town that you grew up in is very dark. It's a very dark reading of America, and it's not a question of true or false, but your experience of the inequities of the experience of being born into something about which you have no choice, and Brian, your friend Brian's experience, and how you shared so much for a long time until suddenly you didn't.
Yeah.
And that's where the inequality happens. And I found it very disturbing. And I wondered if you would talk more about how seeing that as a teenager felt to you then. Seeing this inequality.
I didn't know it. I only noticed it when I went to college, and it hit me in the face like a truck. I remember getting to college and the first day, just going, oh, okay, these are people from a different place, all of them. Just no one here, like the abundance that all these other kids had and just the way they walked, it really broke me. That was the first moment I kind of recognized that we had such a lack of abundance.
Is that?
And I think it's set an anger in me that stayed with me for a long time. And, it's still there to a certain degree.
Yeah. It's something that you hide very well.
Well.
He never seems angry, which is, of course, abnormal.
But, yeah, the first time we met was at McDowell, and our good friend Richard, who's here, who's published Lynne, Richard wrote me, because back then you needed to have recommendation letters.
That's right.
From people.
You don't anymore.
Yeah, they got rid of that.
McDowell, right.
And so Richard wrote my recommendation, and he accidentally sent it to me. And then I put it in a folder, and I didn't look at it because I felt like I was breaking some covenant. And and I put it in a folder, and I said I allowed myself to read it 5 years later. And I did, and it was honestly the nicest, it's still to this day one of the nicest things anyone's ever written about me. Anyway, it got me into McDowell. I had never applied to a residency before, and we got in. Richard said, you got to look out for Lynne. She's going to be there at the same time. And I was really nervous, imposter, what am I doing here? And Lynne was just immediately just so sweet. Your love of people and your attention to detail. I mean, that's, as I was reading these stories, it's just present all throughout this book. Your incredible love of people. Even, we were just sitting across the street having dinner, and Lynne just can't stop pointing out how magnificent everyone is. Or in the back room here, Amali, comes in, and Lynne's touching the embroidery on her shirt, and how this is so beautiful, and it's incredible. And then, your love kind of radiating out towards animals. I just want to read this short little of yours. This is just 3 sentences, but I love this. I love this. This is called, the story's called "That's How Wrong My Love Is." And she goes, "I love animals. I am an animal. I'm a mammal, a human being. I, like most people, love many, despise one person. Though I don't want to hate anyone. I'm also selfish and want what I want. But my greatest and most enduring problems in life are ethical. But living ethically is necessarily a conscious endeavor. The unconscious is not ethical. And questions and riddles about correct behavior are endless in variation. New issues coming along all the time. Stalking on the internet, for example." So, anyway. But this book is just filled with so much love and attention to detail. And I mean, one of the things when I'm on my walks is turning everything off. I, am otherwise utterly ensorcelled by these stupid phones and the internet and distractions. And part of what I was trying to do in my walks was basically get to a place that feels like you occupy naturally, that your attention is out there in the world, and your love of people kind of drives that.
Thank you. I think loving people is kind of anathema to a writer, frankly, or should be, because a lot of people hate other people, and it allows them to stay home and write. But whereas I have a conflict because I like people. And so I write during the day, and fortunately I'm a relatively fast writer, I think. I think my observation comes from being the youngest in my family, being quite a bit younger than my 2 older sisters. And so when you are born into a family where everyone's much older, obviously your parents, but your siblings, you really have to watch out. You have to really observe and look at their faces and try to figure out what the hell they're thinking about and how is it going to damage you. How are they going to somehow destroy you? And and they tried, But here I am today with lots of psychoanalysis, and without which I would not be here, I think.
Yeah.
But thank you, Craig. The question of detail, I always think I could write more detail, but when I'm reading certain books that have a lot of description, certain kinds of description, I get very bored.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lack in me. I think I should write more description about, I don't know, landscapes and stuff. Although I love looking at landscape paintings, it's peculiar.
Yeah. Well, I think the first night we met, you suggested a few books to me, and they ended up being really important books in my life.
Oh, what were they?
So you recommended Dennis Johnson's Train Dreams, which I think had just come out in paperback, because it had just been the Paris Review essay. Paula Fox's The Coldest Night, because I was writing about my dad back then. There was this was the novel kind of about, burying a dad.
Yeah.
And then John McPhee, actually, the book, I forget what it was called.
Did I recommend that? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I could, really?
Or maybe it was someone sitting next to you at the dinner table.
Yeah, it must have been. My altered ego.
Your altered ego.
Well, those 2 books, well, Dennis's was fiction. There's a way in which his ability to make a dream a reality or a reality a dream, that's an extraordinary book, very complex. And, his most famous book, I guess, was Jesus' Son, which is very different from Train Dreams. Interestingly, Dennis and I got to know each other in Japan, because we were sent we were invited, both of us were invited to go to Kyoto to spend a week in the first ever MFA program in Japan. I don't know if it's still going on or not. And then we got to know each other, and he was an extraordinary person.
When was this?
Good question. Very good question. Let's see, he's been dead a few years now, and we're in 2025, going back. Maybe 2016,
Okay.
2015.
Okay.
And Paula Fox, who is not as read as much as she should be read, she's a brilliant, brilliant writer, whom I was lucky to get to know because we were on the same reading bill together one time. The book that she's best known for, now I'm forgetting the name of it, but her first book, very first novel called Poor George is just exceptional. And why am I forgetting her second book? But it'll come back to me. But The Coldest Winter was the kind of, it would be called a memoir. But for me, it was so different from a memoir because what she was interested in was other people. And so it takes place, it recounts 1946, so it's a year after the Second World War ends. And she's a stringer for an English newspaper, and she travels to different parts of Poland, of France, and she's looking at the wreckage of World War II in people's lives and the landscape. And it's extraordinary. It gives you a sense, you know, we think a war ends and it's over. I mean, not that we all think that, but some of us think that it's over and so on. Of course, it's not over. It's something that lives in people's memories and that has affected everything. And this book is extraordinary, and that's probably why I wanted you to read those two books.
Yeah, well, they had a profound impact on me, so thank you. They were really great recommendations. But I was trying to think of, as I was reading these stories, what walk in Japan it sort of reminded me of if I was to map a book like this to a walk. And I kind of landed on the Omine Okugake Michi, which is the walk that I almost died on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
It's just because getting back to the attention thing, you're paying so much attention, but also as a reader, you know, I think what's so bizarre now is how much media is produced today to be consumed in the background. Streaming, I'd love to know the numbers on streaming, actual attention given to streaming productions. I suspect it's probably less than like 5% of people actually watch the thing. It's always in the background here while doing this or doing that. And then with audiobooks too today, it feels like that's also kind of almost like a background hum of something, but maybe less. And these stories, you can't take your eyes away. If you,
Really?
Yeah, well, if you step back, I mean, if you step back for a minute, you've sort of lost your step. You've lost, I mean, there's something in these observations and the way the sentences move. You have to really pay attention. In the Omine, you walk, it's a 7-8 day walk. And it's a ascetic pilgrimage walk. So it's like we're ascetic training ground, actually.
What is an ascetic training ground?
So like the mountain ascetics, because a lot of these temples and shrines would have been deep in the mountains. And in order to bring the emperor or the imperial family to these places, you'd have to have essentially a Boy Scout, a Japanese sort of Boy Scout, who had it was called sendatsu, which is a kind of license to be able to take the family. And so in order to get the sendatsu, you had to do ascetic training, and these were the routes that the ascetic training took place on. And so you had to perform these rites and do these things. And they were very difficult. And I've walked this one route basically 2 times, and you have to pay attention to every step, every single step.
And why is that?
Because the path is never just flat. It's always, there's some obstacle, boulder, you're climbing a thing now, you've got ropes, you've got chains. There's always something you're contending with. It activates you. You have to be fully, you look at the distances and you go, okay, it's only 10K today. I can do that in 2 hours or 3 hours. But the map will say it takes 7 hours. And you go, it can't take 7 hours. It takes 7 hours.
Really?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It just feels, it's almost like something's broken and you know things. This is the route that John also almost died on, where he went to like hypothermia.
So we have to say who John is. So in his book, in Craig's book, there is someone called John, and John, he refers to the Book of John, because isn't John the person you first started doing walks with?
John, yeah, I mean, a big part of what I write about outside of the book is archetypes. And I'd say John kind of entered my life unexpectedly as this sort of archetype for many different things. And you also, I mean, us meeting at McDowell, you became an incredible archetype for me. Every time we hang out, I think I need to be kinder because you're so just delighted by everyone and so nice to everyone, asking so many questions. And I just think I'm such a weird, hermit, kind of like this. Like I just feel like I'm curling in on myself.
Craig, you have like thousands of followers on your Rodin back and whatever those
Rodin
things are.
back. But yeah, John, I did a book about the Tokyo art world, and John is a big art guy.
Oh.
And a mutual friend said, oh, you should meet John. And we sat down for breakfast at like 10, and then we didn't stand up from that first meeting till 5 p.m.
Wow.
It was just one of these sort of, oh, okay, yeah, we like each other. We get each other. And he started inviting me, because he was basically retired. He launched Sky TV with Rupert Murdoch.
Really?
Yeah, he was the CEO of Sky TV in Japan for a decade. And then he sort of retired and he started doing all his art stuff. And then he went back to walking, because he'd done a lot of the walks I do when he was 18, 19, 20. So he went to full university in Japan, writing his graduate thesis in Japanese by hand. Yeah, no, he's fully...
So he was American? He's American?
Australian.
Australian.
Yeah.
And he went to Japan when he was quite young?
16, 17 on kind of a scholarship. And he just fully made a life. He was working with Ansett for a while, and then he did Sky TV, and then after that, he was done. He was kind of cooked.
Can't imagine working with Murdoch. But
I know.
so John appears in this book not as a physical John, but as a man who has seen and learned so much. And Craig reads from this book, and that informs some of the walks and what he sees and what he might expect next.
Well, yeah, John was sort of, he started inviting, he said, I'm going to start doing these reconnaissance walks. Do you want to come with me? I'm trying to map out these, basically, tours for people. And I started going, and that was when I knew nothing about any of these paths until John invited me. I never knew of a pilgrimage route. I'd probably never even heard or consciously thought about the 88 temples, none of these things, and these famous routes in Japan. So it was only, around 2010 that when John started inviting me that any of this was revealed. And that was interesting in and of itself, but then also watching John with his language and the way he carried an abundance. And maybe that's kind of what I'm seeing when I see you interact with people too. There's kind of this abundance of love and openness that is really, it's inspiring to me. I grew up with, seeing almost none of that.
You haven't yet written the book of Lynne.
The book of Lynne, the book of Tillman. And watching John just really, I don't know, shine a light back at all these people we were talking to, these farmers.
It's as if he were a father in some way.
He would kill himself if he heard you say that. He does not want.
Why is that?
Oh, like our dynamic is not father-son at all. It really is friendship.
But isn't he a kind of teacher?
Kind of, but I think it's strangely going in both directions.
So when did it become for you on these walks a way in which to meditate, a way in which to, whatever we want to call it, contemplate?
I think it was probably when I did my Vipassana retreat.
What is the
which
Vipassana?
That's a 10-day meditation retreat where you sit for 10 hours a day and you do 100 hours. And the first 3 days, all you do is you focus your attention on the space between your nose and your upper lip. For 30 hours, you're just focused on the sensation on your upper. You feel like you're going to go crazy. It's very bizarre.
Sounds like
it's very, very bizarre. And then you move on, you start moving your attention to other parts of your body, and you start scanning, and kind of bizarre, mystical things begin to happen. Just physiologically, you feel almost like particulate matter and like you're blowing apart, and it's very, very trippy. it's very strange, and there's no speaking, and there's no, you can't have any books, you can't have any paper, you can't have a pen. You're just supposed to be there, and doing that for 10 days, it felt like a pretty big accomplishment, and at the end of it, there was a kind of incredible joy that I felt, and the group kind of split. There's probably about 40 people, 20 guys and 20 girls. And at the end, you could see there were either people who had found a real benefit to it and kind of leaned into it and accepted all the complexities and the less than perfectness of the environment. And then there are people who just stewed in that the entire time and were losing their minds and immediately just went into a huddle to complain about the entire experience. It was so bizarre. And there's one other foreigner. This is in Kyoto I was doing this. There's one other foreigner, and he had this big beard and a weird, crazy head of hair. He's about 22. And he and his friend were breaking all the rules. And one had a flute, and he kept playing his flute. It was very bizarre. And they went into the field, and they shaved his head, one of the guys' heads. And then we were all in the dining room having our last lunch together. And everyone is so high and happy and joyful and full of just delight. We made it, oh my God. And we had this shared experience. It was so great. And this Japanese guy comes in, and the guy who shaved his head sitting in front of me, Japanese guy comes in and just dumps all of his hair on his plate. And it was the most passive-aggressive, violent thing I've ever seen. It was just chilling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he scooped up all the hair from the field and just put it on his curry, his final curry. Anyway, so you can have very different experiences at these meditation retreats.
That reminds me when I was a proofreader at Forbes magazine, which I did off and on, and 5 days on, 5 days off, that kind of thing, and so it worked in terms of doing other stuff. There was a very strange relationship between these two men, one straight, one gay, and one day the guy who was straight, when the gay guy was not there, went over to the gay guy's desk, and there were a lot of pencils there. And the straight guy put them in a pencil sharpener until they were this big. So when the gay guy got to work the next day, he was confronted with this. I mean, it is one of the most passive-aggressive or bizarre, it was one of the most bizarre things. They never spoke again. And I don't know that they ever confronted each other. It was just like, what do you make of that? What do you make of that? I mean, it's a little, I don't know if it compares with, but it just...
It's just, there is something fundamentally broken in the system,
That's
in
right.
the code.
Yes.
A little bit.
Definitely.
And that's why animals are so amazing, right? That's why we love animals so much.
Yeah, we love...
They transcend that brokenness.
Four-legged animals a lot.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went dancing?
Oh, jeez. It's been a while, and I really miss that a lot. And I sometimes put on something and dance in my house, but I just feel stupid then. Why?
Oh, just because there's so much dancing in this book.
Yeah.
People observing dancing, thinking about dancing, remembering dances.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow,
Oh,
that's a part of Lynne I didn't
know.
We've
that
never
part of
danced.
me. Oh,
No?
we've never danced.
I think maybe
we could dance out
we
there.
post-talk dance.
No, dancing. Fantastic. I remember dancing on sand up in Maine in this barn, and wow, just with your feet in sand and dancing, it was so good.
But I did to get back to your question about the meditation part of the walk,
Yes.
I did that 10-day thing, and then I went on an 8-day walk right after that, and that alone, solo, and that was the first time I think I kind of really connected the two.
But you know what's so interesting? You are so, he's gregarious in relationship to this club or group. I mean, his texts to all these people are so welcoming and talky and good and well written and all of this, and then you go on these silent walks and you do talk to people. What's very interesting about this book is that one of the many things is that he goes into these little shops, Kisses, Kissa, and has conversations with the shop owners and orders food or has a coffee. And that's part of every day because, of course, you have to eat.
Right.
But you do engage with people. That's a very big part of these walks.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of, we've talked about therapy a lot, and you've said, you've done a lot of analysis and everything. And, I've done now 8 years of therapy almost without missing a week for 8 years now.
Really?
And part of doing the therapy is I find myself wanting to inhabit some best version of myself for the session to get sort of the most out of the session. I don't know, this is where my mind goes with it.
What do you mean your best version?
I don't even know what that means.
Neither do I.
So the walks, I try to do that even beyond just an hour of analysis. And so saying hello to all these people, having the rule of take someone's portrait before 10 in the morning, to force myself to go in and have this kind of interaction, to create something, and then get infused with that. It feels so good. I mean, it's just it's life-giving, I think, in both directions.
Craig does take some wonderful photographs on these walks, and I knew your photography before I knew your writing, I think. I mean, and is there a relationship between the two for you?
Yeah, I mean, the writing that I'm doing today, the writing that I found, so Lynne was talking about my membership program before, and me writing notes to members. How many people here are members? So, wow,
Oh,
okay.
My word.
That's great, thank you.
Look at that. That's extraordinary, really.
So why you think you find a lot of optimism in these member
Yes,
messages?
I find a lot of optimism. I mean, I don't think people read this stuff to feel down. I mean, I think, you really are engaging them in, it's both personal, but the way in which you write the personal doesn't feel that personal. It's really interesting. He's sharing, another phrase I can't stand, really, he's showing his life, his thoughts to all these people he's never met, but writes to them, talks to them as if he has met them, and as if they really do want to know about him and know what he's going through. It's the opposite of those hideous family letters that you get at Christmas, It's the opposite of that. And yet it's very, you see, you have the expectation that people are actually interested in what you do. I don't mean it to sound as if they shouldn't, but that's the optimism.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I guess you could say, I'm a writer, and I imagine people will be interested in what I write. Of course, it's taken years for people to be interested in what I write, but you do that. You offer yourself up as a kind of medium, let's say. I don't mean in the psychic sense, but between this and that, between your doing things and what other people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, they're paying me money, so.
No. Even in your book, in this book, wonderful book, one of the things I found in reading it was that I could feel as if I were, in some sense, on that walk with you, feeling that quiet with you. And I think that's also in this club that you have. It's a sense of having people feeling some kind of belonging to you.
Well, I mean, part of this is the end of the tail end of the tour. I've been all over America now and big, great groups of people, and it has been moving. I'm glad I've done the in-person stuff. I mean, it's just this understanding who is out there and like the members and all, and the kindness. To a T, all of the bookstores have said to me, first of all, who are you? No one knows who I am who actually runs a bookstore. It was really hard to book all these things, so thank you, Amali, for believing in us that people would show up. And then the second thing they say is, my God, your readers are so kind. So kind. Like, they've said, multiple bookstores have said this, as if readers are coming in and, flipping over chairs normally, or...
What the fuck did you get me into here?
So that's been bizarre. But that, to me, has, that's not what I've been trying to, I haven't been trying to cultivate like a gang of super kind, gangsters or
Are
whatever.
you sure? Are you sure
That
you
wasn't the-
haven't been
There's been,
cultivating
I don't know
super
what,
kind people?
I don't know what I'm doing. I absolutely know what idea I'm doing. And when I launched the program, I didn't know what I was doing. And the only thing I did tangibly, I got out of it was, these people are paying me money, and I'm going to take that as a kind of weird permission that they want to hear about me. They want to hear about what I'm doing, or they're voting with these little memberships to keep going down this path. That's it. So that's where that impulse comes from, to share, to feel like there's someone out there that maybe wants to listen to it.
And it doesn't feel, I mean, it could border on self-indulgence, but it doesn't feel that way. And I think you really are trying. That's a sort of half compliment.
Thanks. I felt it.
I think you do want to communicate something which is different from self-indulgence. There's no self-pity, there's no particular narcissism. There is well, anyway.
But you've been uncompromising in your, I mean, you've written so many books by this point, and you've been, I can't see compromise in your oeuvre.
When my first full-length novel came out, which was Haunted Houses, another writer who hadn't yet been published came up to me on the street, and he said, I just read Haunted Houses, and you didn't make any compromises. And I thought, what compromises was I supposed to make? And this is because I started out as a kind of purist, that my writing would be seen as brilliant, and all of that I was making all of these different moves that other writers weren't, et cetera, et cetera. And of course I learned very quickly that wasn't the case, that this wouldn't be seen. And I thought, why would I be a writer if I were to compromise? If I were to compromise, I would use whatever skill I had to make money.
Yeah.
I didn't think about writing and making money, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, stupidly, I think, probably.
Well, I think we're getting into
Oh,
Q&A time.
Okay.
And I wanted to do just a little flash round with you.
Okay. Oh,
We haven't discussed this.
no, not at all.
So we're gonna figure out. Robin Sloan did this with me in San Francisco. It was quite fun. So I'm just stealing Robin Sloan's thing.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you two names.
Okay.
And it's gonna be kind of like a championship to get down to the person you're gonna go on a walk with in the East Village.
Huh. Oh, my. Okay.
So just, you have to pick two of these two names you pick, and then we're gonna start whittling it down.
Okay.
So Jane Bowles and Jonathan Swift.
Oh. Well, I don't think, as much as I think she's one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, I don't think she'd like me. I'll choose Jonathan Swift.
Okay, Jane's out. Kafka or Virginia Woolf?
Kafka.
Okay.
I mean, I love Woolf, but Kafka is something else.
Murakami Haruki or Toni Morrison?
Who?
Haruki Murakami
Oh,
or Toni Morrison?
Toni Morrison.
Okay, Murakami's out. Bye-bye. Hunter S. Thompson or Margaret Atwood?
Oh, Thompson's a creep. Margaret Atwood, though I've never read her.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
James Baldwin or Kazuo Ishiguro?
Baldwin.
Okay,
Of course.
Sure. Zadie Smith or Yukio Mishima?
Zadie Smith.
Okay, bye-bye Mishima. All the Japanese guys are losing. Sally Rooney or Mieko Kawakami?
Not Sally Rooney, the other one.
Mieko, okay. No Sally Rooney. Bye-bye. Okay, so Mieko Kawakami. Okay, Jonathan Swift or Pope Leo?
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I think still Swift, because I think Pope Leo is going to say everything he wants.
Okay, so Leo's done. Okay, we've got Kafka or Toni Morrison?
Kafka.
Tony's gone. Atwood or Baldwin?
Baldwin.
Okay, Atwood's gone. Zadie Smith or Mieko Kawakami?
Zadie Smith.
Okay, Mieko's gone. God, this is complicated. I should have done this enough.
Zadie Smith is really great to talk with, actually.
So Jonathan Swift or Kafka?
Oh, Jesus. Kafka.
Okay.
Kafka.
Swift is gone. Baldwin or Smith?
Which Smith?
Zadie.
Oh, Zadie. Baldwin.
Zadie's gone. And then it comes down to Kafka or James Baldwin.
Oh, jeez. Well, I guess I'll go with, much as I want to say Kafka, I would have loved to have been able to speak with Baldwin.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, time for a couple questions.
So you gave an interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah,
In that talk, you shared how your time with John McBride
yeah,
had been very meaningful to you, in part because of how he interacted with others.
yeah.
You really learned and gleaned a lot of how to open yourself up to others and open them up to you from him. Do you have any lessons or things you learned from John that you could share with us?
So the question was, do I have lessons that I learned from John about
Opening up to people or having them open up to you?
opening up to people or having them open up to you? I mean, honestly, what people respond to is simply the work he's put into caring about where they live. So if you really want people to be moved, learn something about their neighborhood, their town, their city. That's a big part of it. And then in Japanese, it's a little different in English because you're not going to start speaking like Victorian English to people. But in Japanese, you can kind of speak in this elevated, bizarre register that maybe the farmers normally don't get addressed in. And so that's like another way of just signaling respect through language and word choice. But it's really, I mean, fundamentally, it's just about knowing the place that the ground that you're standing on, knowing something about the history of it, and your questions kind of relating to that. And I think for most people, that's something that they don't experience that often, someone caring.
I just want to say that in America, because the people move in America, or at least they used to, so often, relative, when I was living in Europe, I mean, people stay in the same place for a long time. America was not, maybe now with the, well, with what we've got going on now, with the horrors of it, maybe people won't be able to move as much and all of that, but I think it's very different when people are tied to place
Yeah,
in a way that they're not so much here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
You wrote, I photographed everything. A camera between the eye and the world is a powerful tool, a suit of armor, a microscope, and a telescope in one. And I'm curious how, like, you feel that a camera shapes what you see when you walk, and that's what you write about. Do you think you'd write differently if you didn't carry a camera and look for images?
Yeah, so the question was, how does the carrying a camera shape what I write about and how I kind of approach a walk? Which is kind of your question that we didn't really get to earlier a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's, not to, to try to unpretentiousize it as much as possible. I mean, these are all just weird hacks to get me to pay attention more, to get me to be more deliberate about things. And I mean, photography is just something that always interested me. I mean, the technical aspects of it are sort of interesting.
That's how you first started
That's-
writing about it.
Yeah.
About the technical
Yeah. It was
aspects,
about
yeah.
reviewing. I mean, some of the first writing I did was reviewing cameras, essentially taking them on these
Right.
field tests or whatever, and that kind of getting some purchase out in the universe and kind of growing from that. But I mean, it really is just, how do I get myself to look more closely? How do I get myself to go back to these moments and, the textures and seeing the repeating patterns that you can see over days and months of being out on the road that without some kind of recording device you'll miss, you'll lose track of. And so the camera kind of serves for that purpose. And then I'm also dictating, as I'm walking. So I'm using all sorts of prosthetics to kind of, at the end of the day, be able to synthesize it or remember the important moments or the things that moved me. And they all kind of work together. Maybe we can do one more question? Yeah. Does anyone have a, yes?
So early on, Lynn mentioned how this isn't really like a typical memoir. And after reading it, I would agree with that. But I also felt that after reading it, there are so many jumping off points to an actual quote-unquote memoir. Is that something, and I know you said you've got 5 books set out already that you want to write, but is the sixth like a possible memoir, like a real memoir?
No, hopefully not.
What is a real memoir?
Yeah.
This seems just hyper focused, you know, and I feel like it may be more broad, dealing with family, adoption, blah blah blah.
Like a Karl Nausgaard sort of like vomitorium of your history.
5 volumes.
Yeah. No, I mean, even this, having, Lynn and I were talking about this earlier, like I bristle at the fact that the memoir is even on the cover. This was more of like a Random House thing where that they wanted to frame it that way.
Yeah, because they sell. They sell better.
And so it was sort of reluctant, you know, and I was also saying to Lynn, it feels like the background I've included is more just to give context to why I would be doing the walk, rather than wanting to tell some story.
And why his past, that moment where his friend is murdered, frames his present, right? So these walks are always overshadowed or overwhelmed by the loss that he felt because of, and the guilt that he feels. So that's not remembering his life. That's kind of the juxtaposition or the counterpoint between how the past inflects the present and how that cannot ever be erased. You know, Craig will carry this all his life. That's different from a memoir that tries to trace a life, I think. Okay.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.